We're live.
Okay. Hello everyone on Facecast, Facebook. This is the PR Week team. Trying out a new technology. We've moved over from Periscope and we're now with you on Facebook. Now there we are. I'm eating an apple, sorry about that. So yeah, and coughing. Okay, so welcome to the Facebook podcast. We do this every week on a Thursday Eastern time around 2 p.m. And we have been peri-podcasting and we're now trying out facecasting. So Facebook, is the door shut properly?
Sorry, got it.
Probably Gideon?
Yeah, actually it is.
Okay, it just seems quite noisy. We've got a bunch of guests and can they input questions and comments in
Yes,
this,
they can.
Byron?
They can indeed.
Has anyone joined yet?
Yeah, we have 20 viewers.
Okay, all right, folks. Well, if you've got comments, questions, or things you want to add to the debate, please send them in and we'll try and incorporate them in the show. Okay, so we're about to start recording and hope you enjoy. Just get this high-tech piece of equipment working here. There you go. Hello and welcome to the PR Week, PR Week's regular weekly roundup of everything that matters in the worlds of PR and communications. My name's Steve Barrett, I'm the Editor-in-Chief of PR Week, going to guide you gently through the next 10, maybe 15 minutes, possibly 20, who knows, we'll see. This week we're facecasting, not peri-podcasting or pericasting, we're facecasting using Facebook to do our live commentary. So if you're listening to this on the actual podcast, that probably doesn't mean a lot to you, but if you're listening live, welcome, and please have your questions and comments ready. We'll try and incorporate them in the show. This week I'm joined by Frank Washgood, our news editor. Frank, welcome to the show. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing well.
Yeah?
Thrilled to be here on our...
Finished your teaching for the year?
Not really. I have, well, tonight I have the great honor of watching our graduating master's students do their final pitches for Universal Music Group.
Excellent.
And we have 3 groups of people from the BIC program at City College doing presentations for executives who have flown over from London from Universal. So it will be a good show.
Yeah, Frank.
City College of New York's Branding and Integrated Communications program, which is a master's program. It's a 3-year program, and it's good. The students are very impressive, and most of them work full-time as well, so they are very busy. And yeah, it's been a great experience.
Yeah, and they speak very highly of you, Frank. And so not only do you get up at 6 a.m. to bring our readers, our viewers, the best in the breakfast briefing, you're still going at 9, 10 o'clock at night, teaching the next generation.
I'm a man of great energy.
You are. Is there any end to your skills?
No.
Right. And we've got Diana Bradley here as consumer reporter, senior reporter, consumer expert. How are you, Diana?
I'm great, thank you.
Are you? Good.
Can't complain.
And we've got a special guest this week, listeners. We've got Gideon Fiddleside, our managing editor, who's come in to tell us all about a new venture, well, not a new venture, but the launch of our latest iteration of a venture, and we'll come on to that shortly. Okay, so what are we going to talk about? We're going to talk about Egypt Air, another plane crash, unfortunately, with terrorist implications. We're going to talk about the Diversity Awards, which Gideon will key us in on. Overtime rules, those regulations look like they're going to come in now, so what does that mean for PR? We'll find out. Bentley has got a new AOR, Agency of Record, Jeff Kuhlman, formerly of Nissan, doing the top job over there, well, the North America job over there. And Facebook, they've been reaching out to the right wing, or the more right wing element of the political community who claim they are biased and liberals and not giving them a fair shake. So, and anything else that catches our eye.
The viewer asked what our thoughts were on the Peppercom blog.
I didn't see it actually, so yeah, couldn't comment on that. If it's the blog I'm thinking of, then I'm sure it was derogatory about PR Week. So I mean, fairly consistent in the thoughts on from that direction, and don't pay a great deal of attention to it, to be honest. Okay, let's talk about Egypt Air. Frank, do you want to kick us off on that?
Sure, really brief. Obviously, an Egypt Air plane en route from Paris to Cairo went down this morning. It had 66 people on board. What is still emerging at this point is whether or not it may have been terrorist related. Some officials are starting to talk on that, indicating that's probably the cause, but there's nothing official yet. And what we found interesting is that Egypt Air had been communicating through its Facebook and Twitter platforms, asking journalists not to jump to conclusions and to stick to official press releases with the information they were putting out, which I don't know.
Why do you think that was, Frank?
Well, I just wanted to respond like, good luck with that when I saw that. Because you're essentially asking thousands of people reporting on this not to do their jobs. And I'm not sure that was the most effective thing they could have done with that.
But why were they going around, or what was the thinking behind it?
Well, I think there's just a lot of speculation anytime there's a plane crash. And, officials who might not have great knowledge of a situation tend to talk about it or talk about it generally. And you can see how information can move in the wrong direction sometimes. So I think they might have had good intentions with it, but I'm not sure it's going to be totally useful.
Yeah, and
to keep people calm.
yeah, I mean the natural assumption immediately is that it's a terrorist incident, isn't
Right.
it? And of course, a few weeks ago they had another hijacking, which was nothing to do with terrorism. Really, it was it was a very strange incident, wasn't it? A lovelorn husband or something like that.
Something along those lines, yeah.
It's also, I think it's worth noting, and I think this has to be discussed at this point. Obviously, Donald Trump jumped all over this, immediately calling this a terrorist attack, because unfortunately, that plays into some of his strengths, so he jumped all over that. But as we were coming down here to record this podcast today, I was noticing a breaking story on CNN that Hillary Clinton was actually about to make a speech that said Egypt Air is, the incident highlights the threat from organized terror groups. So Hillary Clinton seems to be leaning in that direction as well. So
yeah, but the thing about the Trump quote was he didn't bother saying commiserations or thinking about the people on board or the potential tragedy. He was just using it to score a political point. So that was I think
that's his
MO. Yeah, that was what caught my eye on that. Gideon, so let's talk about the Diversity Awards, which we have done in partnership with the PR Council for the last 5 years.
This will be year number 6.
Oh, okay. And we've just launched the latest iteration.
Correct. Thank you, Steve. It's a program that PR Week is incredibly proud to be a part of. Of course, we'd be really, really proud when it gets to the point where we no longer need to have these awards, because that will mean that the PR industry has really, really gotten to where it needs to be on this front. It is making progress, though, and we're happy to do our part. As Steve said, it is now open for nominations, submissions, and this is the website, prweek.com/US/diversity awards. No spaces, it's all easily enough spelled, so that should be easy enough for you to find. I want to make a couple of points this year about what we're doing to make it a little bit more answerable and a little bit more celebratory of more programs. We are honoring, Diversity Champion is a category in the Diversity Awards has always been very, very popular. And I have often heard judges lament in the room as they're deliberating, boy, I wish we could have more than one winner. We can't do that, but what we can do and we have done is we divided into 2 categories this year, in-house and agency. We welcome as many entries, of course, in that category, in all categories as we can, but this way we can honor a few more really worthy honorees, and we're very, very happy to do that. What we're also doing is we're taking from the very, very popular PR Week Awards, and for the first time this year, we will actually be giving out honorable mentions in all categories where the judges deem an honorable mention worthy, okay? And the reason that's important is because it's just another way to tangibly, physically, if you will, honor more programs. So while it is still very limited in how many winners we have, there's 6 categories, there's only going to be 6 winners and 6 honorable mentions, but it still doubles the amount of people who actually get physically, for lack of a better word, recognized. We know that's important to a lot of people as they enter these programs, so it's something that we're really, really happy to do as well. But nominations are open today. They will be open until July 19th, so you have 2 months to enter. Judging will happen on August 25th. We have an incredible group of judges, which you can see on the website that I pointed to before. And on September 21st at the PR Council's annual dinner, that is when we're going to be honoring our winners. It's a really cool event. Again, it's something that we're really, really proud to work on, and I'm really excited to get this thing started.
So what, just to rewind a bit for those who are not familiar with the awards, what are they all about and what are they designed to do?
What they're designed to do really is honor agencies, organizations, and individuals that really, really are moving the needle in terms of making the PR industry more ethnically diverse. And I'm not just talking about the entry level, that's obviously important, and the junior levels, but I'm talking at the senior levels as well. That's a common lament among many people in the industry, that while the industry is bringing in a reasonable amount of ethnically diverse people on the lower levels, it isn't really translating at the very, very senior levels. And what we want to do with this program is, it's not a typical awards program where it's only about honoring people who are doing great work. Yeah, that's an important part of it, but this is equal parts inspiration too. I mean, we really, really want to showcase examples of agencies, and not just the typical large agencies and big companies, but we have certain categories that are honoring smaller companies as well, smaller agencies, because we want to show that this is something that every single entity within the PR community can actively get involved in and make a difference, and not only in their own organizations, but through inspiration, have other organizations do so as well. So it's an honoring system, but it's also an inspiring system, and that's why this is truly one of the most important programs that we work on. I'm very honored to work on it again this year.
Yeah, great honour to be part of that and that partnership with the PR Council, and we hope that it's making a small difference. And obviously the ultimate aim is to not even need to have those the programme at all. So please do have a look at that and get your programmes in, whether you work in-house or at an agency. And we want to see the best work. All right, Frank, let's talk about these overtime rules that the administration has been working on for a long time and now look like they're coming in. Just give us a quick snapshot of what they are and what they're going to mean for people in the PR community.
Right, so they are new regulations that have raised the threshold for the salary, at which point people making under a certain amount per year are eligible for overtime after they work 40 hours a week. Now, that threshold used to be at between $23,000 a year and $24,000 a year. It is going to be moved up to between $47,000 and $48,000 a year as of December 1st. Now, the original idea was to move it up to about $50,000 a year. So business owners are just a little bit happy that it didn't get moved up all the way, and they're happy that they have about 6 months to prepare for it. Obviously, they have a lot of thinking to do about how they're going to prepare more entry-level people to be making more money, either through overtime or raising their salaries in the first place to a point where they don't have to pay them overtime.
Is this a flat rate across the country then? So whether you're in a small town in the Midwest versus in New York City, it's still $47,000.
That's a great point. Thank you for bringing that up. So this will have a greater effect on agencies that are in areas other than Washington, D.C., New York, San Francisco, Los Angeles, the cities where the cost of living is so much higher and salaries tend to be higher, where entry-level employees are making a considerable amount less. So it's going to have a greater effect on firms and companies in general in those areas.
So what are people saying then in the industry? Because obviously not everyone wants people to get a fair wage, but on the other hand you don't want small businesses to be potentially put out of business. Is this eventually going to end up with the clients paying more and more fees?
Well,
and is that actually a good thing, and shouldn't that be the way it is anyway?
Well, I'd argue they should, but even something tells me that clients aren't going to be too thrilled about the idea of having to pay more just because the law went into effect. So I get the feeling it won't end up coming from the clients, but that a lot of agencies are going to shuffle around how and where they have their money so they can pay for these things. I think that we got some responses that said that it was a bit of a too drastic move up the ladder too quickly. We got some responses that were basically neutral on whether or not the regulations are a good idea, but said we are looking forward to how we can tackle it. And I think that's pretty much the big response.
Gideon, you look after our annual salary survey. How can you shed any light on how many people that's going to affect in the industry? You know, the bands of salaries under sort of 47,000. Is that a big part of the industry overall?
Well, I'll tell you, a lot of the response that we did in the salary survey are towards the more junior level, and I don't have the numbers in front of me, but if I do recall correctly, women in PR who are under 5 years, their median salary is right about where that cusp is that Frank was talking about, 47, 48,000, which means at least half of them probably make under that. So I actually think this is going to be fascinating because I think this is going to be a major topic when we have our salary survey next year. It'll be very, very interesting because, yes, adjustments very well might have to be made, especially a lot of our respondents to the salary survey do come from those major cities, Chicago, Washington, D.C., New York, San Francisco, where the cost of living is higher, and maybe it's going to be interesting, and maybe a lot of agencies are going to be thinking, you know what, it might be better off starting these people at the level just above that number so they wouldn't have to be, so they wouldn't have to be paid overtime, might be beneficial to them from that perspective. So it'll be really, really kind of interesting to see how that happens. But, Frank, I actually want to ask you a question.
Sure.
Frank's really good. I didn't ask this before, and I know he's going to be really good on the spot, but I was reading a report that a senior vice president, not necessarily a senior vice president of communications, but a senior vice president at the National Retail Federation said this was going to be a career killer for a lot of people.
Right, but that's the position.
That's in the retail industry.
That's the position. The NRF tends to be pretty conservative on this issue,
Okay.
so it's not surprising at all to me that they're opposed to this.
Remember, that's an industry where there's a vast amount of people
Yeah.
on minimum wage,
Yeah.
which I'm sure there are people on minimum wage in the PR industry, but it's not as widespread as it is in retail.
Right.
What about the difference in impact on holding company firms versus small to medium enterprises?
Well, it's going to affect agencies all the same way, whether they're owned by a holding company or not. So I'm not sure it will make that much of a difference. But I think in terms of overall holding company budgeting, maybe you could see some changes there that a smaller firm, an independently owned firm, might not have the same opportunity.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we'll follow that because that's. I think I know a lot of agencies, especially, are really engaged with that issue, and it's a big business issue for them. So we'll follow that over the next few months. Comes in December. Is that
December
right?
1st.
Okay, great. Thanks, Frank. Diana, welcome. Tell us about the Bentley account that has gone to. Who's it gone to? And it's their first AOR, isn't it? Or a change in AOR, at least.
It's a change,
Yeah,
it's a
okay.
change. So Bentley Motors last Thursday selected MNC Saatchi PR as their communications AOR after an RFP process that began in January. The incumbent on the account is JMPR, and they also pitched along with 3 other firms. MNC Saatchi is tasked with telling the brand story, and will be focusing on the Americas region, which includes Brazil, Chile, Canada, Mexico, and the US. And it's targeting future growth in countries throughout South America. So the reason why MNC Saatchi was selected was because it has offices in Brazil, Chile, and Mexico.
That's an interesting choice, isn't it? That's an advertising agency, or the PR arm of an advertising agency.
Yeah.
Obviously, there are competition and impacts here, in that a lot of firms have already got a big automaker and they can't go for other ones. Bentley's relatively small in the scheme of things. It's a luxury car maker. What was the thinking, do you think, behind going for MNC rather than?
I think it was based on the fact that they have offices in those areas.
Okay.
They made a really big. I spoke with Jeff Coleman over there, who's Bentley's CCO for the Americas.
Yeah, he used to be at
made-
Nissan and he came back from Japan to take that job, didn't he?
Yeah, so he made a really big deal about that, and he also said that they have worked with other luxury brands and they have a real understanding of the automaker. So that was really.
Yeah, it's a luxury market. It was interesting, wasn't it, Frank? We met some folks from Dentsu, not Dentsu, from Hakuhodo in Japan earlier this week, and they work for Toyota and Nissan. So,
Amazing, isn't it?
which you couldn't see that happening over in the US, but in Japan they can get away with that, which is
No,
interesting.
and
And
that-
Dentsu works with.
And that, I
clients
think,
across
was
the
one of the
board.
more fascinating parts of the whole meeting. And they, you could sort of tell by the looks on their faces when they were talking about it. They knew it was something that could never happen in the U.S.
Yeah.
But they were kind of
Different market,
Yeah, different
definitely,
market,
yeah.
sure.
Interesting stuff. All right, thank you, Diana. Let's talk about Webmaster Byron. We're going to introduce you into the podcast now. Welcome, Byron.
Hi.
Facebook outreach. Facebook has sort of been reaching out to elements of the political community that say they're getting an unfair shake from the sort of massive social network. So tell us
Yeah, so earlier in the month, an anonymous source talked to the tech site Gizmodo about the Facebook trending topics section. And the anonymous source was saying that they were an ex-Facebook employee and that the team that chooses what goes into that trending feed at the top of your page actually would routinely censor topics that had a conservative spin or from a news source that might be more conservative, Blaze, Breitbart, sites like that. So Facebook was very quick to say, we have no evidence of this, but we're going to do an internal investigation. And part of their response, in addition to putting out documents that guide their team in how to choose trending topics, was to invite several conservative commentators, news people, I think a couple ex-politicians or current politicians, to a behind the closed doors meeting to kind of explain the process, what their response is going to be, how they were going to move forward, and how they were going to educate people on this issue. Because just because Facebook is such a gigantic organization that has so much reach, even if they're not technically a news source, the way they allow people to access different news stories can have an enormous impact on what people are
so they say the
informed on.
algorithm is kind of biased here, or that there's some human choice going into this?
Well, I spoke to a few people. There's going to be an analysis on this topic on the site tomorrow. And
Coming out on Friday, yeah. Look out for that.
What they said is that there's a mix, that even though Facebook isn't, they still have this team of people that will decide the trending topics. So it's a mix between the algorithm, which will help them identify topics that are worthy of being trending topics, but then the team will have to make an editorial decision on which ones will actually go in that feed and which order. So I think during this meeting, part of their job was to reassure these conservative commentators that not only is the algorithm unbiased, but there are guidelines in place. It's not just a bunch of random tech heads saying, hey, I like this topic, let's put that up there. That there's actually some editorial guidelines into choosing which topic goes where, which gets selected, and maybe that there isn't actually a bias there. They've denied that, and they've said that their internal review so far has found no evidence of bias.
So they had a bunch of meetings with politicians, and what came out of that then?
Well, it was mostly with pundits. It was mostly with media. There, Dana Perino from Fox, S.E. Cupp, and so far the buzz, again, this was behind closed doors, but they have gone back to their respective media outlets and they have been basically positive on it. They said this was a genuine meeting. We were reassured. Facebook admitted that there was a problem reaching conservative users, whether that was because of some bias. They said that they didn't find that, but there was this perception of bias and that they had a hard time sometimes connecting with the conservative part of their user base. So,
I mean, in theory, it should be organic, shouldn't it? I mean, your group of friends or contacts, you should be accessing, you should be getting served content that is kind of in your network or it's based on your user preferences previously, so it should really be what you're looking at.
There are two different parts. There's your news feed, and that's separate from the trending topics. So there's a different algorithm for your news feed that is based on the stories that you've given those reaction to, those thumbs up, what your friends are sharing. That will appear in your news feed. But the trending topic is something that is generally more universal to everyone that day, where they'll log in and they'll see that trending topic list up there. And that's really where the person who was speaking to Gizmodo said there was bias, that they were keeping conservative news out of that area.
All right. Well, thank you. I'm looking forward to reading that. So look out for that, listeners, on Friday. Should be a good piece and interesting developments over at Facebook. Before we go, Gideon, since we've got you here, tell us a little bit about the conference coming up in October, our annual PR Week conference. You've already signed up some fantastic speakers, I believe.
Yeah, I have. Thank you, Steve. October 13th, that is the date to mark on your calendars. Convene. You go to our website, you can find all the information. You have to be at this event, and I'll tell you why. A lot of reasons, but we already have some tremendous speakers lined up for you. We're going to open the day with Toby Cosgrove. He is the CEO of the Cleveland Clinic. I'm sure you've all heard of the Cleveland Clinic. It's truly one of the more progressive and innovative hospitals in the world. With, by the way, quite a global reach, actually. And that's part of what Toby's going to be talking about. They have, they're opening up a facility. I don't believe they've opened it yet in London, but they're certainly looking into that, I believe. And they have a presence in Abu Dhabi. So the name is Cleveland Clinic. It really is a global operation. So that's going to be very interesting. We are going to have the CMO and CCO of a small company you might have heard of, GE. Linda Boff, the CMO, Deirdre Latour, the CEO. They're going to be talking together about how marketing and communications can coexist. And that's really a lesson that everyone can learn. So we're very lucky to have those two speakers as well. And the most recent addition to our great panel is the CEO of the Girl Scouts of the USA, Ana Maria Chavez. She is going to be delivering the pre-lunch keynote. This is an incredibly impressive woman that Forbes magazine named to its top 50 global leaders. She's actually number 24.
It's Girl Guides, yeah.
I'm sorry?
She's the leader of the Girl Guides.
The Girl Scouts of the USA, yeah.
Right,
I did say it, didn't I?
Oh, yeah, I don't know.
Okay. But yeah, so we're really excited about that. And so that is the example of the level of speakers that we're going after. There's going to be a lot more. So check back on the website all the time. The agenda is constantly being updated with new speakers, but really, we're off to a flying start. This is going to be every single conference has been
What's
great.
the theme, Gideon?
It's called the value proposition. Yes, I forgot about that. That's why he's really good. He keeps me in line. The value proposition, and basically what it's about is communications role in the C-suite, not just being a voice in the C-suite, but how it can become the voice in the C-suite. And every single session is going to be funneling back to that theme. So it's going to be a really exciting event. We're looking forward to it.
I think Girl Guides in England.
There's the Girl Guides, the younger. So there's
like
Cub
the
Scouts
brownies.
and then Scouts. Brownies. No, they're called Girl Guides. Yeah,
Girl
sorry,
Guides.
they are. Yeah, no, the Scouts are the boys and the Guides are the girls. Yeah.
Learn something new every day.
Yeah. Although they say that you have to allow boys and girls into both.
Right.
So you can't just have the Boy Scouts. You have to let girls into the Scouts if you want to. But anyway, that's a whole different topic for another show. Thank you, Gideon. Looking forward to that.
Thanks.
So we've got CEOs, CMOs, CCOs, and some brilliant influencers. I think it's going to be a great show as usual, and it'll be followed by the 40 under 40 dinner. All right, we've rattled on for long enough, I think. So that's all we've got time for this week. We'll see you next time on the PR Week.
Thanks for watching, everybody.